Hello and welcome to my presentation. My presentation is regarding perspectives in psychology. What is behaviourism? Behaviourism shapes the learning and experiences of behaviour in humans, animals through interaction and our environment. It is assumed that behaviourism is the result and conditioning learning direct or indirect. An example of a positive reinforcement would be rewarding a child with a treat for passing an exam. This encourages the child to work harder to get a reward. There are two types of behaviourism: radical behaviourism and social learning. Radical is learning a responsive mechanism, such as a dog at the bell rings the food before it sees the food. Social learning, this is learning from behaviour of others, like copying a role model. What is psychology? Sociology is how we think, influences and relates to other people in our presence. It is how we understand the behaviour of individuals and how these can shape the social environments that these happen in. The social aspects of lives is important, as we have to look at connections with others. This can provide an insight into a range of common social issues such as prejudice, discrimination. There are 5 concepts of sociology. Social influences is how individuals change their behaviour to meet the demands of a social environment. Social perceptions is an impression we can make on others. Social interaction is how we relate to others from the first impressions. Attitudes and beliefs, this is how our beliefs and attitudes are formed and how they can change. These concepts help to give an understanding and influence that can determine the behaviour towards others. The key assumptions of behaviourism. Behaviourism have based on beliefs of how we act to base a condition that happens through our integration of our environment. This is founded by John B. Watson in the early 20th century. He focused on observable behaviour. This is the belief that the focus should be on observed and measured behaviours rather than focused on thoughts and feelings and motivation and the environment. This believes that humans, we are born the same in the environment and social norms. Animal and human compare learning patterns. This is beliefs that humans and animals are the same. They believe that comparing learning patterns and animal experiences. Strengths and limitations. Strengths, as you can see on this diagram here, these can give an insight into social problems such as discrimination and stereotyping. This allows problems to be solved. Culture factors. By learning into culture factors, we can promote a cross-culture understanding that allows better insight to many cultures, differences and encounters. Controlled experiments. This is caused by the effects of relationships that can be explored by allowing thought testing. So as we move on to limitations, lab-controlled experiments, as this controls in laboratory settings and its findings do not always relate to the real world settings. Publication, this can create a biased findings in studies and novels, can fail to present and full range of research. Personality traits, these can ignore as much studies focus on influence of situations rather than the individual traits. So the key theories of behaviourism. John B. Watson was known as a father of behaviourism, as he believed psychology was focused on observation behaviour instead of internal mental process. He did an experiment called as the Little Albert, which was conducted in 1920. This study was conditioned as stable and not very emotional. As an 11-year-old boy was called Albert, and he was feared of a white rat. This happened by he would strike a steel bar and a hammer behind little Albert to create a loud noise every time the rat was present. This frightened Albert, and he would cry and crawl away. Over time, Albert conditioned to be feared of the rat due to the noise that was associated with it. The experiment demonstrates that humans can have emotional responses in conditions and fears are transferable. John B. Watson method on little Albert happened and helped give us an insight of the behaviour. However, it was criticised by many who felt that this was due to stress and fear that the infant was put under. Ivan P. Pavlov, a Russian known to study the concept of classing condition, he believed that the behaviour determined by conquest and became one of the most important sectors. The experiment that he conducted was with dogs accidentally discovered a classic conditioning. This was during the experiments where he literally was doing research on dogs. Slava, he soon realised that actually his lab assistant approach causing the dogs. This experiment led causing the dogs to slaver. This experiment led to the theory that animals' behaviour towards food is learning a response with associations from the natural and unconditional. This would be known as conditional reflex, later changing to Pavlovian psychology evaluation. So the evaluation, as his experiments provided an insight of the fears and development. However, the criticism from argued and classic condition does not take into consideration the complex of the human actions such as taking, reason and memory. It ignores the role of the mental process and assumes people will be able to control. So also, just moving on now, we are going to go and look at the similarities of behaviourism and social psychology, as we have spoke about some examples. So the nature versus nature, as both behaviourism and social psychology agree that nature plays an important role in our behaviour. Behaviourism and socialists fall more into natural sides, that our environment determines our intelligence. So reduction versus wholesome, behaviourism are more Behaviourisms are more reductionists. They believe behaviours can be broken down into similar components which can be studied through an example of the Pavlov dogs experiment, whereas sociologists are mainly redundant, however, do have some, as they consider influences of social and culture and environmental factors. So the three contemporary issues in sociology are strengths, limitations. So strengths is addressing issues that can lead to long-term changes. It carries a framework that helps us understand the complex of the human behaviour. Limitations, it can take longer for an individual's schedule. It can be more expensive. The behaviour therapy. The behaviour therapy, known as CBT, focuses on changing and negative thoughts on the behaviours we have so we can improve our own mental health. The strengths of that is treating depression, and it respects the role of learning and how it can adapt into mental health. The limitations is it doesn't always suit everybody, and it cannot treat all mental health conditions. The diversity and inclusion, the diversity recognises and understands that everyone is unique and different. The social impacts and the bias training, it can develop an increase of awareness, and this can affect people's aspects of life, decision making. The strengths, it helps to raise awareness. The limitations are it can be very expensive and difficult to enforce. And also we have what behaviourists and observation learning. It's a more important role which can reduce discrimination and improve inclusion. The strengths are training programs that can be done for workers. The limitations, training programs can be expensive, and training doesn't always suit every role. To evaluate both applications in the workplace can be beneficial, mindful, and training programs can help improve resilience in the workplace. So thank you for listening today. Also, I've got my reference list here as well. And yeah, thank you.